This is Dianella, an upper middle class suburb north of Perth. Dianella is one of many suburbs in Perth where featurism and architectural status is in its abundance. The desire of the owner to portray their success through the style of their homes produces buildings like these, McMansions, which do not connect to the environment, the climate, or even this time period. In order to display their status, we get a mismatch of features from different places and times, a Frankenstein of styles that are not only brash and confronting, but far from a unified Australian identity. Within this presentation, I will be discussing Australia's boom times, and from it, the crassness of featurism, middle-class desire for status, and because of this, an underdeveloped Australian architectural identity. There can be few other nations which are less certain than Australia as to what they are and where they are. Robin Boyd. If architect Robin Boyd was alive today and driving through the depths of Perth suburbia, one would imagine the look on his face seeing the vast amounts of featurism that seem to adorn the facades of residential homes. From Bali to Tuscany to ancient Greece to, well, who knows where, Boyd would be able to visit any time period and any country without leaving a single street. The concerning thing is that he would have trouble finding an identifiable 2017 Australian-style home. So why have we not developed an Australian style that is specifically recognised as Australian architecture? I'm going to take us back to Australia's Victorian boom times to have a brief look at where we stopped developing Australian architecture and were lost in a time of featurism and status. It was an exciting time for Australia post-Gold Rush. With that of the 20th century as a prosperous country, great business ventures began, banks were generous loaning money to the middle class, resulting in the worker coming into power and wealth. The idea of equality and even ground resulted in mass production, which allowed the building industry to flood the market with prefabricated decor. Features that would take hours of work by a craftsman were now cheaply and readily available and easily installed by a builder or even the ambitious homeowner. The middle class wanted to decorate their homes to match buildings that exuded wealth and status. They copied hotels and government buildings. Hotels such as the Peninsula Hotel in Bayswater or the Guildford Hotel in Guildford were situated near train stations where aristocrats and merchants would disembark. The ornateness of these buildings were deliberately overdone in an effort to appeal to a higher status clientele. These buildings were usually designed by British architects, commissioned by the British Empire, and thus portrayed what we now know as high Victorian style. After years of hard work, the labourer could now ordain their homes with domes, pediments, iron lacework, urns and mouldings. In a gesture of more is more, design was subject to taste, and the middle class went overboard to subtly and not so subtly show their standings in the middle class hierarchy. They assumed this was the facade of aristocracy, and without the education of good taste, their once modest and practical homes became a mixed match of features and styles. But what goes up must come down, and as the British Empire in Australia invested its money and men into 2 world wars, the desire for high status was placed on hold. In the way that history tends to repeat itself, 2003 saw the beginning of the commodities boom. The increase in wealth in the middle class was a repetition of the late gold boom period. Both worked hard to make their riches and splurged on a variety of items, the major one being their homes. Like the gold boom, there was a sense of pride in one's hard work. Both time periods saw a surge in immigration, population and infrastructure. The 19th century took inspiration from the exhibition buildings, one built in Melbourne and one built in Sydney, and these buildings displayed the latest in building decor and design. a richness and popularity that would push the trends and the desire for aristocracy. The commodities boom of the 21st century was similar. Although there were no specific buildings to copy, the latest trends continued to flock across the latest magazines, renovation reality TV, and of course home design websites. Styles were inspired by celebrities and those of higher status. The need to express one's status in society has become damaging to our architectural identity. We have not invested the time or the talent to significantly separate Australian architecture from other countries. Ironically, current Australian architects are being employed to design iconic, identifying architecture for other countries, such as the Beijing Olympic Aquatic Centre. Where we could have developed architecture of the past, such as Glenn Murcott's award-winning Magni House, residential architects fall to the demands of society and their desires for the large home, inspired by some exotic location rather than the connection to their daily environment. Modern philosopher Alain de Botton has spent his career questioning our happiness and our architecture.
What happened with housing is that the worst impulses of human nature just ran away with themselves. And the old democratic dream of we're going to build a great community for everyone gave way to an idea of my palace will need to be bigger than yours. And that's an unfortunate moment in culture.
Why is it important to have Australian architecture? Identity is a summary of history, culture, and personality unified in a recognisable instant. It is the way we portray ourselves and the way we want to be portrayed. As architects, we need to find pride in our country and design for the connection rather than mimic styles that are equally at home in any country in the Western world. But is an eclectic mix of featurism actually a true representation of Australian identity? We are a nation of immigrants and travellers. We are rich in culture and experiences. Should we be focusing on our connection with a global society rather than being so nationalistic? In fact, shouldn't the diversity of our nation be a source of national pride, a tribute to the multicultural reality of modern Australia, as opposed to a throwback to our colonial past?